Hello, welcome to another edition of On the Spot. I'm Chris Taylor with My Astro Chris, here to look at another chart. And so what we'll do today is just do a brief look at this chart. It's a birth chart or a natal chart, and we'll talk about kind of some of the conditions that are represented by this chart in terms of this individual's basic personality makeup, and also what's going on now in terms of where the planets are and astrologically what lessons or possibility waves that she's in right now. So what we're dealing with today is a 36-year-old female. Actually, she'll be 37 next week at the end of March. Today is March 25th, 2010. You can find this full reading at a couple of locations. One, temporarily at my website at www.myastrochrist.com, or you can find it at its permanent location on my blog at www.myastrochrist.blogspot.com. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can always click on the link that'll be on the right-hand side, and you can find your way to the blog and actually find all pieces or parts of this reading as well. And so when I first look at this chart, if you look at the horizontal line that goes across on the left-hand side, where that begins, with you see a little number 1 underneath that, that's where the first house of 12 houses begins. So that's where the chart actually starts. In this case, it starts in the sign of Aquarius. So this means that when she was born, that Aquarius was rising. So her rising sign is then Aquarius. And the rising sign itself is representative of our mask. It's that shield that we put out there. And when we're younger, it's used as a defense mechanism. As we get older, the skills that we learned because we were employing this mask and employing the shield out ahead of us becomes a sort of a toolkit that we can use at our will. The idea, though, is to become conscious of these conditions as a defense mechanism and to then be able to then turn it around and use it in a positive way as a tool set instead. And so the defense aspect, as a child with Aquarius rising, here's someone that very much is in tune with the group, understanding what the group's needs are, and almost to a fault of allowing the self to be dissipated amongst the group, and to always understand what the group's needs are, and to only see oneself as part of a group and not a separate entity. And when we get to this Aries sun, the sun in Aries, this is a very different energy than that in terms of being very self-focused rather than group-focused. And so here's someone who, on the inside, that Aries sun, is a very sort of self-focused, which isn't necessarily selfish, but there's a sense of coming into the world in this life with a sense of discovery and like a childlike essence. And a lot of that is sort of me-centric in a way. But the mask here, the way that she had to behave in order to be accepted, at least in her perception, she perceived that she had to be compliant with the group, that she had to understand the rules of the groups, understand what is expected of her. Okay? She also knew that she had to be intelligent and to have intelligent and witty things to say in different group situations. And she had to, even while maintaining that group function, there was also a part of her that kind of wanted to be different than the group as well. So there's this dichotomy that goes on there with a mix of blending with the group and also wanting to be a little different than that group. Okay? And so that's the mask. To use that positively, though, once she becomes conscious of this mask, she's really learned how to fit in with a group. She's really learned what group's needs are. She's really learned what her unique input is within any group. She's already learned how to spin things intelligently when she needs to. So these are some of these beneficial aspects she's gotten out of this experience, even though as a child it was used offensively. It was used as a way to say, oh no, I don't really care. I don't really want anything for myself. What does the group want? And only complying in that sense so her parents and her friends might have seen her as someone who was very compliant, but then at the same time very rebellious as well. So like I said, there's a combination of compliance and rebellion with the Aquarian energy there. But on the inside, there's someone saying, well, what about me? What about me? And so with the parental situation, especially there's some indicators here of both the image of the masculine and the feminine being, not the most subtle and easy influences at all. And so she may have also acted as a mediator in some ways, someone who was constantly aware of what everyone's needs were and constantly mediating that and kind of taking away from herself in the process. And so once we get through that first level of defense, that rising sign, now we get into the moon sign. The moon represents our second layer of defense. It's our almost burglar alarm kind of an energy. It's if someone's gotten through our mask or our shield and now they're in, we're vulnerable. Now how do we react? Okay, and so a lot of people will put on a certain front, that's that mask. Once you get them in a vulnerable situation, all of a sudden they're completely different. Everybody is, but some people are. And in this case, that moon is in Pisces. Pisces is a sign, a very sensitive sign, and this moon is also in the first house. So here's someone who is very sensitive to the undercurrents in any kind of group situation or even in a one-on-one situation. Just very, very sensitive to the emotions that are happening. And so while putting on this front of being sort of intellectual and friendly with everyone and a mediator of everything, there's this Pisces aspect, this inner aspect, once she gets into a vulnerable state where she can kind of melt and want to escape. A lot of people with Pisces moons will escape with things like alcohol and drugs and other forms of escape, even movies or whatever it is. There's a sense of not wanting to be present, wanting to just get away. Okay? The positive side of it, like we said, is this real sensitivity. Here's someone who can really sense what other people need, almost to a fault. Okay? So that will further bury that self-based Aries inside of her.